Hello comrades, the Honey Badger here with a new guide. This time it's about an industry layout. Namely, anything that has to do with crops in huge bulk. The chemicals plant won't be present here since it's a monstrosity of its own and I already made a video on it. Moreover, did you know you're actually paying to export food, meat and alcohol? No? Well, let's get out of the cornfield and explain what you're seeing on the screen at this moment. Let's start off with the topics first. What research do I need? Part 1 of the build. Part 2 of the build. Maximum production outputs and profits. Maximum production inputs and how many big fields you will need. Why you should not aim for maximum production. Optimal setup for most profits. How many big fields you need for optimal production. Let's start off with what research you need. Well, literally none. Basically, optionally, maybe these synthetic fertilizers if you want it, and maybe some early start DLC to unlock better buildings. Apart from this, just go building. Moving on to the part 1 of the building. Now, you guys will most likely call me crazy, and I'm wasting your time. However, at the beginning when I started enjoying this game, I had to build colossal factories entirely from scratch, and most of the times it happened that I was running out of cash pretty fast. Well, that was because I didn't realize back then that I don't need a huge ass warehouse to store all of the goods. Therefore, when starting out, try to find a place with some flat land, preferably get your tool for measurement and measure around 650-ish, maybe, meters, somewhere around here, and then 650-ish meters this way. If you got more, that's perfectly fine. Now, to start off, we're gonna place simply a bus station over here. Now, I have a tram stop, it doesn't matter. You can use a train station, a bus station, whatever you feel like it. Afterwards, let's build a path. Preferably either an asphalt footpath or a brick footpath, because both of them have 100% walking speed. Including the lamps, it's completely optional, but the higher the quality, the better. So, let's just plonk one down temporarily. Actually, yeah. Let's start with a temporary build over here, because we don't know where the other things will go. So let's start with a mud footpath. And afterwards, we're gonna place our first buildings, namely the clothing factories. Placing one over here, as close as possible to the road. There we go. And another one as close as possible to the road on the other side. Now you're going to notice that I am mirroring them and facing the road connection on the opposite sides. This is intended. It's especially necessary for the passenger road to split in the middle because we're gonna create a monstrosity behind them. Now let's just place a road over here, a road over here, and then at the very border, go with the free distribution offices, especially that you are starting at the beginning. So let's place only 3 of them. Now in each of them, we're gonna buy some closed holes. Whatever the highest closed hole you're gonna have, and fill them up. Good. Now simply select it. Of course, set up your road system. And let's remove all the unloading. Loading fabric. Unload fabric. Unload fabric. And then load clothes. Load clothes. Good. We're gonna place 10% on loading. And on unloading, we're gonna place it somewhere around 50 to 60%. Good. Now the vehicles already started going over here. By the way, don't forget the gas station if you're playing with the gas turned on. And simply transport or buy gas. Good. Now that we have set it up, simply grab one of your trams or buses and make sure you go over here. Now, here you're gonna need 160 times 3 workers in order to have all of these working at max capacity. Of course, you can get drinking water, power supplies, etc., whatever you need over here. You're gonna see at the end that I already have them hooked up. I didn't hook them up in this example because I'm too lazy. Now, I recommend moving to part 2 of the build only once you have rail set up and maybe tourism or a secondary industry like oil set in place. The reasoning is very simple. At the moment, these trucks are carrying 11 tons of fabric. You only need 2.4 tons per minute. By having so many covered hools, you're going to fully saturate these clothing factories with absolutely no problem. These covered hools can handle all needs for these two factories. You don't need to build an overcomplicated warehouse where you're gonna waste a lot of money on steel and materials in order to have it up and running. No, that's for the second part of the build. This one will make sure that you have money from the beginning and start producing money as soon as possible. You don't need more stuff. Understood? Good. Let's move to part 2 of the build. Okay, now you have researched other shenanigans and you got the cash flow incoming. And you're ready to finally build this industry to its full capacity. Let's see what it takes. Firstly, remember the footpath. Make sure it's connected to both sides. Now, all of the buildings that I'm showing, make sure you keep the road connection on the side that I'm building. It's important to be on this side, or else you're going to have troubles with bridges. Starting off, let's place a warehouse. Let's take the highest warehouse available we have. We're gonna place it in a way where the road is pointing on the left side of the build. And let's make sure that is as close as possible to the clothing factories. It's important to be as close as possible, or else you might have problems with citizen access. So over here is perfectly fine. Now, if we're gonna take a normal road, we can connect it directly to the road of the clothing factory. Good. Behind it, let's start off with the fabric factory. We're gonna place it with the road pointing again to the left and making sure we just leave enough space to build a underground passage for our citizens. Over here should be perfectly fine, just like this. Good. Now let's grab a food factory. It doesn't matter if it's the normal food factory or the early start DLC food factory, both of them are identical. And let's go with the normal one just to keep the aesthetic. And make sure that we place it somewhere around here and pay close attention on the left side. You got the passenger entry points. Make sure that they match. Also, make sure that the factory connection is just as shown over here. It's very important to be connected over there because we won't be able to connect the alcohol industry. Moreover, make sure to place it to the second passenger location on the left side. You see, it's parallel to this one. And apart from this, make sure that the road is on the right side. It's important for it to be on the right side. Cool. So let's place it down somewhere around here. Should be fine. I'm going to hold control to not build that said factory connection. And now I'm going to manually build the factory connection over here. Moving on further, let's take our alcohol industry. Again, both early start DLC and normal have the same factory connections and the same road. It doesn't matter which one you take. What's important is the road. Make sure that it's pointing. Let's see how to point it. There we go. And I'm gonna come like this. Basically, I'm going to connect the factory connection on this side coming over here, and the silo connection will be in front. So somewhere around here should be perfectly fine for me to place. And now let's see about the factory connection. If everything is successful, you can connect it directly like this. Good. Let's also build the road. There we go. Going straight, just like this. Perfect. Now, after building this road, you're going to notice something interesting. Basically, the bus stop has direct access to the alcohol factory. You don't need access to it. However, you're going to need access over here. Now, if you've been following this without playing on realistic, simply build an underground tunnel and be done with it. However, if you're playing on realistic, make sure that this factory connection is not yet built. It needs to be demolished so your trucks can get and build this. Moreover, over here, because it's connected to the bus stop, you won't be able to reach this area to build the underground passage. Therefore, make sure to add a secondary road going like this until over here. Let's see if I can manage to connect it. If not, I am gonna use F4 and let's see if it works. If not, let's cancel this footpath and make it again. Here we go. Good. So basically now our vehicles will have access to construct the underground passage over here. Let's demolish this road over here and place an underground underpass. Just like this should be perfectly fine. Good. On this side, also make sure to place one. Firstly, let's connect the industry to our road. Just like this should be perfectly fine. I'm leaving this area just for garbage collecting, or if you want, you can also connect it yet again over here. There's absolutely no problem. Then come over here with a dirt road until here, connect these two here, and then connect it like this. Good. Afterwards, place a pedestrian underpass. Over here should be perfectly fine. Place it as close as possible to the building. You want your citizens to abuse the speed received from the footpaths, because the speed of the underground connection is not 100%. It's lower. I don't know exactly the value, but just place it over here. Good. Afterwards, let's go and build a pedestrian tunnel. Make sure it's rounded off as much as possible, because if you're gonna leave it as a straight line, you're gonna see 94 meters versus 80 meters. Even here, 72 meters. So this one is more perfect. Let's go with this one. And now basically we're gonna have access from the bus station directly to these factories over here. Good. One more thing, let's upgrade this area right now to footpaths. Similarly over here and this part over here. I don't care about this part because now we're gonna delete it and then redo the factory connection itself. There we go. Now we have everything connected over here, and now behind we're gonna place the hugest silo that we have. Let's see which one is the best. This one, with a rail line. It's important to be with a rail line. Also, the road connections need to be opposite, so behind all of these factories. Let's place it like this, and as you can see, it can connect to all of the buildings. Notice now that the factory connection for the alcohol is way far from the factory connection of the food factory. We can even make it way further by just pushing the connections further. So let's say somewhere around here should be fine. It is important to have it as farthest as possible because you want to make sure you can build a bridge above it. So let's build that said connection over here. And now build a road connection starting from here. Let's go like this and as straight as possible. There we go. And now a bridge. Raise it to somewhere around 9 meters. There we go. And then go back to 0. Just like this. And now you can freely connect it to the other one. If it will allow me, come on. Nope, it simply refuses to connect, so we're gonna need to build another small one. There we go, and now we should be able to connect. There we go. Perfect. So now all of the factories over here have a connection to the road system. Good. Now, on this side over here, we are going to need a way to connect the train station. So, not the train station, sorry, the roads. So let's just make a small road over here and then bring it up. If you're gonna have the trains coming through here, then the road needs to go on this way. If your trains are coming through here, then the road needs to go on this way. If you're building this as a pass-through, then it doesn't matter in which direction the roads go. I'll have the train line coming through here, so I can connect it like this. Make sure you leave some space, because on the rest of the constructions, we're still going to have more factories. For now, I'm just interested to have a roadway over here built. You can even connect it over here with absolutely no problem. There we go. Cool. Now, over here, I've made a mistake. Basically, this connection over here is not properly set up. Let's delete it over here. And now we're going to take a train station. Let's see, where is it? Here we go. I would recommend a 4-way train station. You don't need a huge ass thing over here. Or if you want, I think there was a 4-way train station. Yeah, this one is just perfect. So let's connect it over here without too much of a hassle. And there we go. Now we're going to need to reconnect the roads over here. Let's pull one road like this. Perfect. Now we can connect the railroad over here with absolutely no problems at all. And we're gonna have 4 places for our trains to stop. Now, on this side, we're not yet done. We're gonna need to place a meat storage. Let's go with this big one. It should fit in quite well. Somewhere around here. There we go. Now it works, and it also connects to the train station. Perfect. Good. Nearby, let's place a slaughterhouse that connects to there. Good. And the slaughterhouse, of course, it will need some way to store the cows. Okay, and now let's place the final thing, livestock hall/range. There we go, and this one connects directly to the slaughterhouse. Good. Now the advantage over here is that the slaughterhouse is within range of the bus station. So all of the citizens will drop off at the bus and then go directly to the slaughterhouse, just a walk away. Good. In the behind area over here, you're going to notice firstly that the slaughterhouse takes 150 tons of livestock. However, the livestock farm produces 10 tons per day. So you're gonna need around 15 of them to maximize the meat imports exports. However, in later topics, you're gonna see that that is not needed. 5 of them should do just fine, and even lower is better. If you want, simply build one of them around here somewhere. You see, this is what I mentioned about build this part of the road later down the line, because now we're gonna need to delete it really fast. There we go. Maybe not all of it like I did over here in this guide, but you get the gist. And now let's go with the livestock farm on this area. Make sure the road is pointing correctly. And place one here. On this side, the same. One over here. And it should be able to connect to the point directly. Let's confirm this. There we go, perfect connection. And another livestock farm. Let's see where it was. Over here should be fine. Good. Now the sad part of this configuration here is that you won't be able to have another livestock haul range that can connect to all 3 of them. I've tried multiple times to have... Actually, it might be possible. Let's check it out. Let's see, can it... No, it's too long, unfortunately. You see, this is the problem. And if we move this livestock a bit closer to this side, you won't have access over here. And having a livestock haul range over here is overkill from my point of view, because you're gonna produce barely 10 tons of livestock per day. That's 2 truckfuls of livestock. You don't need a small train area over here. A distribution office with, I don't know, 8 trucks should be perfectly fine for these 3 livestock ranges. Good. And now on this side, we're gonna connect the road coming like this. Perfect. We've got this area fully covered. Now, we still have some connections over here, which we can abuse. Basically, you don't need more than 3 farms for your entire republic. It will be enough meat. If necessary, just import more livestock, or optionally use this space over here for more livestock farms. But it's not necessary at all. Therefore, let's build another fabric factory on this side. And we can place it somewhere around here, as close as possible to the rail. And also make sure the road is pointing towards the road over there. There we go. Let's connect up the roads. Perfect. And now here we can have yet another one of the warehouses, or maybe a smaller one. Let's check around here. One that stores, I don't know, 350 sounds enough from my point of view. So let's place it with the road facing. It doesn't matter the road facing actually. I think this over here should be perfectly fine. And then build a road on this side. Good. One final thing that we're gonna need to do is to connect this pedestrian underpass to this area and this area. let's do that now. Firstly, let's check around where would the connections go. Firstly, let's check if it reaches, no, it won't reach this area here. Therefore, we're gonna need a pedestrian underpass over here. So it goes to this factory. Like this should be perfectly fine. One for this factory over here. And one exiting on this side for this factory. And maybe another one, or actually on this side, yeah, we're gonna need another one on this side for the fabric industry. There we go. And now let's connect the underground tunnels. So we're gonna have a tunnel going from here to over here. Let's see if we can do anything about the building is in the way. There we go. Just lower it a bit more. Then we're gonna have one the same going underground and connecting it over here. Another one over here. And theoretically, if we're gonna connect this, because we don't have any more, actually we do have more connection points. Let's connect it from here directly over here. Perfect. Now theoretically, check the bus station and you should have access to everything. Of course, you're gonna need to connect them. There we go. And from here, there we go. Now it should have access. Yes, it has access to everything and it's within the 400 meters range. Now we got the fabric factory. Let's get the clothing factories in place. Remember, one fabric factory to two clothing factories. We're gonna do a similar shenanigan on this side. Basically over here it truly doesn't matter the road connection for the clothing factories. Like this should be perfectly fine. And then grab another underground pass to have it somewhere around here and connect the two roads. Let's see if it's possible. It should be. Come on, what other this other infrastructure. For whatever reason, the pedestrian road over here, it's not properly set up. Hopefully now it allows us to connect over here. Yes, it does. Perfect. And I think I'm gonna need on this side to do the same, right? Yes. And there we go. Also, let's make sure to upgrade everything with lamps. Good, so now the last thing is to connect the underground passage over here. Perfect. And theoretically, from this bus station, we have access to every single thing. By the way, we completely forgot the roads over here. I'm just gonna rush and build them. You can build them as beautiful as you want, it truly doesn't matter. And this entire setup is your industry. As you can see over here, I have added optionally a second pair of clothing factory. We're gonna discuss in the future topics why this is optional. You might want it, you might not want it. It highly depends on you. Anyhow, oh, we kind of forgot over here a connection. There we go. Good. So we're done on this side. Now let's go on this side. If you are playing with garbage enabled, you're gonna need to get rid of the waste produced by the factories. The livestock farm produces bio waste. The fabric factory, both bio waste and hazardous waste. The food factory will only produce bio-waste and the alcohol the same, bio-waste. So as you can see, all of the factories produce bio-waste around here. Therefore, this is a perfect place to actually set up your solid fertilizer and liquid fertilizer area. Let's start off on this side and build a composting plant firstly, going into the direction of the bus station over here. For me, it's a tram. If it would have been a bus, it would have been a single road. Now, somewhere around here should be perfectly fine. There we go. We got our composting plant in place. And in garbage, let's go bring a transfer station big. Make sure it's connected to the composting plant. There we go. And simply connect the roads. Perfect. Now on this side we are going to have a incinerator. A small one will do wonders. You don't need a big ass one. And let's place it somewhere around here, should be fine. Good. Let's connect its road too. And the final piece of the puzzle is a place to store ashes. Usually I prefer the claw machine with railway. If you want to go with the dumper, it works perfectly fine with the dumper too. Most of the time you're going to produce very little ash. However, sometimes you're gonna wake up with a shit ton of ash and you're gonna need to pick it up really fast. Or else everything will halt to a stop. So around here should be perfectly fine. Good. Now, like with all my garbage tutorials when it comes to industry layouts, it's important the direction of the factory connections. We want stuff to go into the composting plant and not come out of it. And also we want stuff to come into the incinerator and not come out of it. Over here, where the ash will be stored, we want stuff to go into the ash compartment over here, but not go back into the incinerator. There's absolutely no reason to redo the ashes. Good. Now, you've been smart and paid close attention that the composting plant needs chemicals. Therefore, we're going to need also a storage location over here, and I'll go with the smallest one that we have. This one is perfectly fine. You don't need a ton of chemicals for what we're gonna do. So let's connect it somewhere around here, should be fine. Let's make sure that it doesn't interact with the tram. Basically, if I wouldn't have the tram over here, I would have connected directly the road, but because we have trams and this road is dedicated only for trams, we're gonna need to connect it over here. Good. Let's do the factory connection too. And again, I want only the chemicals to be pulled into the factory. Therefore, factory connection goes this way. Good. So we have the bio-waste coming from here, we have the chemicals coming from here, but where does the fertilizer get outputted? You got it right, from the back. Somewhere around here should be perfectly fine to be connected. There we go. Okay, and the final thing that we're gonna need over here is the synthetic fertilizer. Now, if you've researched it, let's go back over here and build it somewhere around here, making sure that the road connection won't interrupt the factory connection, and we can squeeze it as close as possible. Around here should be perfectly fine. And then have a road coming through here. Perfect. Now, the amount of chemicals these places need is abysmally small. You don't need a shit ton of them. So what you can do is, when planning the small distribution office for your cows over here, let's wait for it to be built. There we go. You can tell it to pick up chemicals from here and then deliver chemicals directly over here. Basically, this one will only store chemicals, nothing more. You can go directly with 60 tons. Good. The final thing is a place to store the liquid fertilizer, and bring up a fuel storage. Like this should be perfectly fine. And then have a piping going like this. Good. And now for the train connections. I did not create it with a train connection. That's perfectly fine. We're gonna have it on this side. Of course, you can have a liquid train cargo station over here, just so you can pick up all the fertilizer that you have. Like this should be fine, but the way you're gonna connect your stuff highly depends on yourself, however you want to build it. It seems like it refuses to connect over here, but I can do it just like that. Good. Of course, you're gonna need to rope the road. I'm not gonna stay around and tell you the problems with this connection. It's just a rushed thing. You're gonna see it a better version, a more beautified version on the final thing. But yeah, this in total is the entire layout of the industry. Of course, without garbage cans, without water. And by the way, related to water, be very careful. The distillery and the food factory required water quality 97 and 95%. On these two, make sure to connect your city water to them. However, the fabric factory, the required water is 85%. Therefore, if playing with water enabled, just grab a water well and place it somewhere around, I don't know, around 500, maximum 500 meters away. And you're gonna notice that even with pollution, you're never ever going to go below the 85%. So just pull water directly from the ground. Don't waste your precious drinking water on the fabric factory. Similarly, for the livestock farm, you're gonna need 93%. Most likely this distance would be enough. You're gonna need to test it out, but it should be far enough for the water quality to stay around 93, 94%. At the moment, the water quality over here is 94%, but then again, I don't have any pollution at the moment. Once the incinerator kicks in, a shit ton of pollution will appear over here. And the final tip before moving on to the next topic: don't build your city very close to this damn industry. The pollution will hit it very hard. Accidentally, for this build, I have only 580 meters. Make sure it's somewhere around 800 to 1000 meters away from your city. Anyway, that's all. Let's move on to the next topic, and let's have the old setup that does not contain the secondary fabric factory. I'm going to mention it in the optimal setup for most profits. However, for all other topics, this setup here with a secondary fabric and clothing factory will not be included. Good. Let's move on to the next topic. When it comes to production outputs per workday, you will get 2.4 tons of clothes, 0.1 tons of fabric, 20 tons of food, 6 tons of alcohol, and depending on the amount of livestock with this setup on the screen with 5 livestock ranches, you're gonna get 20 tons of meat per day. As for the number of workers, you're looking at 2,670 workers in total to cover all 3 shifts. And just to make my life easier for the next topics, I'm also going to add monthly and yearly production over here. Feel free to pause the game and check them out. And also, in regards to profits, you're gonna see somewhere around 250k to 300k consistently per month with the build that I have over here. A quick mention, sometimes you're gonna notice that meat is more sellable than clothes. However, clothing is truly the only positive seller in here. Everything else, you're gonna pay your own money to export it. You don't believe me? Then continue watching. Now, let's discuss the maximum production inputs and how many big fields you're gonna need. So, to run the entire setup that I have here, you're gonna need a total of 5 times 20 crops. This is for the livestock farms. Then 20 crops you're gonna need for the fabric factory, 42 crops for the food factory, and 30 crops for the alcohol production. That's a total of 192 crops per day. Let's see. If you're playing with seasons on, then you're gonna need to calculate it in years. Remember the formula from the last video? No? Too bad. Go watch it. Here's the link. I'll be waiting here. Nah, I'm just joking. Here it is. So let's assume you're playing on a general map. So the production per year is 62 tons. Then the fertility, I'll leave it at 200%, the maximum value. So now we got acres is equal to 192 times 365 slash 200% slash 62. This means 565 acres. Now in big fields, this means you're gonna need 117 big fields to be able to power everything here at max capacity. Just to put things in perspective, let's give you a size comparison. Here's the guide town together with the food industry. Now, here's 117 fields with no roads, no farms, and I can tell you, this thing is utterly huge. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump to the next topic. I wanted to start this topic again with why you should not aim for maximum production, but I think I've made it clear on the above topic. Let's see some cities and consumption of them firstly, so you can understand my recommendation for optimal production. Let's see, what you see on the screen right now is Siberia Done Right series. We have 16,000 citizens and they are consuming 2,254 tons of food, then 508 tons of meat, 61 tons of cloves, and 268 tons of alcohol. This is for an entire year from 1st January to 4th January. Just for comparison, since I'm importing everything here, I'm also gonna share you the resources cost for everything. So for alcohol at the moment it's 2,344, for food it's 1,114, and for the rest cloves is 12k. And where's the meat? I think on the second page, there we go, 2,162. Now, as for crops, it's 143 for a single ton. This is important because we're gonna see that it's linear on the guide city too. Let's move to the guide city now. And as for the tutorial city of 8,000 citizens, half of Siberia Done Right, I have the following consumption in the past year. We have food at 1,364, then meat at 305, then cloves at 53, And then alcohol, I think I am importing from the Soviet bloc. Let's see, 170. At the time of making this script, in reality, I was consuming 1,252 tons of food, 278 tons of meat, 54 tons of cloves, and 158 tons of alcohol. Anyway, in both scenarios, food, meat, and alcohol are consistent. I am unsure why cloves are not consistent, but maybe because I invited new citizens in the guide town, who knows. Anyway, if I'd split everything per 1,000 citizens, using the guide town as a baseline, you'd get 156 tons of food, 34 tons of meat, 6.75 tons of cloves, and 19.75 tons of alcohol. Keep in mind, this is per year, not per month, not per day. Now, to keep things a bit simpler, let's try to move it down per day consumption. At per day consumption, you're looking at 0.4 tons of food per day per 1,000 citizens, 0.09 tons of meat per 1,000 citizens, 0.01 tons of cloves per 1,000 citizens, and 0.05 tons of alcohol per 1,000 citizens. This is literally way less than you're actually producing. Just as a comparison, the food factory has a maximum production of 20 tons per day, but we're only consuming 0.4 tons per 1,000 citizens. That means that a single food factory can sustain a maximum population of 50,000 citizens. And since we live at the beginning of AI, hello ChatGPT, hope you're gonna spare me during AI wars, I've also asked ChatGPT to help me calculate the profits you're getting from crops each time you produce one of the above resources. Please note, I used the values that I got whilst writing the script. Remember, prices fluctuate as years pass. Now you can see on the screen the prices that I've used. Moreover, some of you will have an eager eye and argue back in the comment section that I have included water in here as a bought resource. But at the same time, remember, you're the one paying for the electricity bill to have everything running, factories and farming equipment. Then, you're the one paying for fuel and maintenance of both the trucks running in this industry and the harvesters, tractors, and trucks running in your farms. Those things are too volatile for me to even consider asking ChatGPT to take into consideration. So I did not include them in the math. Let's see ChatGPT's answer. So, as we can see, producing food, alcohol, and meat with the sole purpose of selling it to the border makes crops a negative value commodity. Literally, you're better off selling the crops directly to the border and you'd get a better price rather than transforming it into food, meat, and alcohol. Now, if you have a keen eye, you might ask yourself, why even bother building the food, meat, and alcohol industry? Well, because it's extremely profitable for local usage. I've re-asked ChatGPT again, the same question, but this time those prices are to calculate the cost for internal usage. It returned back that it's way more profitable to produce it locally and use it locally than to buy directly to the border. To be exact, you're gonna save up to 80% of the resource's value, as ChatGPT tells us. You don't believe me? Well, fine. The first pinned comment in this video is the prompt that I used for ChatGPT. Feel free to do your own research, do your own math, and reply here with the results if you got a different one. Now, let's shift our attention to the next topic. So, we declared that food, meat, and alcohol industry is utter garbage for exporting, but godlike for local usage. Now let's bring up again the cost per 1,000 citizens. With this, we can figure out what capacity our factories need to work for each 1000 citizens we got in our republic. And of course, ChatGPT back to the rescue. Here's the limits. So, just limit the amount of workers you're using for food, meat and alcohol to take into consideration the workers and you're done. Now, since clothing is the only profitable business, you might want to leave it as it is. Or, if you want, lower it just a bit so you have fabric incoming too. Let's discuss now how many big fields you're gonna need to have this optimized setup. Based on what ChatGPT offered, we're gonna need 1.54 tons of crops per day to feed our community. We also need 20 tons of crops to keep the 2 clothing factories running at max capacity. Therefore, Editor Me, bring up the formula again. And also now fill in the values. So, in total, we're gonna need 14 big fields, which, roughly compared to the guide town, here is a description of it. Much better than the 117 big fields we needed at the beginning, eh? Now, the research that went onto this topic and me opening your eyes to building efficiency and productivity must mean that I now might get a subscribe from you, a like, a comment down below, and maybe a share with your friends that are still getting frustrated that they're losing money with food, meat and alcohol. And hey, if you don't subscribe, at least I'm happy you're better prepared to play this game and remove some of the frustration. Until next time, I'm the Honey Badger and I'm out.